Okay, good morning to all. We're up to Pei Gimel Amid Aleph. We're up to Pei Gimel Amid Aleph. We're in the middle of a sugya of ascertaining what exactly is the status of an androgynous. And according to Rabbi Yossi, androgynous was a zachar, a complete zachar. Therefore, if he's an androgynous kayin and he gets married to a woman, he can go ahead and feed a truma. He can even feed her the chaz b'shaik, according to Rabbi Yochanan, right? So Rabbi Yossi's and Rabbi Yochanan's opinion is based on the Tana, Rabbi Yossi, Reb Shimon, who said in the Mishnah that you could feed truma. So keep in mind, the names are important. The names Rabbi Yossi and Reb Shimon. Good. They said in the Mishnah, if you could feed truma, and the chaz b'shaik, according to Rabbi Yochanan, obviously Rabbi Yossi is holding that the truma is the raisa, and he's a zachar. Okay. Amarav, Lesel Masnisan, Pei Gimel Amin Aleph. Lesel Masnisan, Mikame Braisa. Let's go ahead and say that our Mishnah that says it's Mamish Zachar androgynous will fall by the wayside in front of the opinion of the Braisa. So the Braisa will be more informative. In other words, we'll hold that as the real sheet of Rabbi Yossi. The Tanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer, androgynous beri b'fnei atzmahu. So in other words, since it has both simanim, it's not a zachar, it's not an akeva, it's a beri b'fnei atzma, it's a third level. So this is Rabbi Yossi speaking, guys. Now apparently Rabbi Yossi in Braisa is having chavrata from Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah. Mishnah said Rabbi Yossi said it's a zachar. Here he's saying it's a beri b'fnei atzma, and Rabbi is saying our Mishnah goes by the wayside and will hold that it's a beri b'fnei atzma and not a zachar. Says the Gemara, Adarabba, let's go the opposite way. Lesel lebraisa mikama masnisan. Let's say the brisa that says it's a separate entity unto itself goes by the wayside, and Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah is more authoritative. That it is a zachar. Says the Gemara, no. Midashafki Rabbi Yossi lebar zuge. Rabbi Yossi left his mate. He left Rabbi Shimon, right? And our Mishnah was Rabbi Loza and Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon both saying it's a zachar. In the Braisa, there's no mention of Rabbi Shimon, only Rabbi Yossi. So when Rabbi Yossi leaves Rabbi Shimon, and in the Braisa, right, Shma Mina Hadabei, Shma Mina, he had charata. Rabbi Shimon, he remained in the shita that an androgynous is a zachar. The fact that Rabbi Yossi now is solo in the Braisa is because he left his partner in the Mishnah that said it's a zachar, and the Braisa is more authoritative according to Rav that it's what a beri b'fnei atzmai. Shmuel Amma, the opposite. Lesel lebraisa mikame masnisan. Let's go ahead and put the Braisa by the wayside in front of the Mishnah. In other words, it's a zachar and not a beri b'fnei atzmai. Adrabba, lesel masnisan mikame Braisa like the first lashon. No, the shamina le the Shmuel, because we heard Shmuel say the chayish the yechida. Shmuel will be chayish when machmir. When it comes to a chumrah, we saw earlier in the Masechta that Shmuel was chayiv to the das of a yachid. He passed him by a shemeres yovim. That was Mekadesh, a sister that he passed like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira on Daf Mem Aleph, and therefore, just like he passed over the other chumrah, over here as well will be machmir. It says Gemara Hani Mili Kiloi Misakrim Asnisan. Mo will be machmir and go according to das of a minority opinion that's provided it doesn't uproot a Mishnah. To say that his chumrah over here to say it's the beri b'fnei atzma would go ahead and override a Mishnah that says it's a Mishnah is of course much more authoritative than a Braisa, because Rabbi Braisa's lashon of bar was left on the outside. It was, if Rabbi edited everything, I would say that we don't say it, and therefore we'll say that a Mishnah is authoritative and it's a zachar, not a beri b'fnei atzma. Lo chayish. Amar bei Rav mishmei the Rav. The yeshiva of Rav said, name Rav halach Rabbi Yossi be'androgynous u'barkava. The halach is like Rabbi Yossi regarding an androgynous, u'barkava, and an halacha regarding grafting. We'll see all this in a minute. U'shmuel amar be'koishe u'bekiddush. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi by the halacha of koishe and the halacha of kiddush. Androgynous. What's the case of androgynous? Hadamoran, like we said that it's considered it's a zachar. Harkava. What's the din of harkava? So a little background over here. We're in the Shemitah year, fellas. Right? We know you're not to improve a field in the Shemitah year. 30 days before Rosh Hashanah already begins the Shemitah year. 30 days before Rosh Hashanah begins the Shemitah year. So at which point in time do we stop doing avodah in, let's say, we're discussing trees. let's say grafting a tree. You want to graft something onto a tree. At which point in time do you have to stop? Now we know it's 30 days before. How many days before the 30 do you have to stop? And that's what we're going to say in halacha like Rabbi Yossi. Ditnan ein noitin, you can't plant a tree. Ve'ein mavrichin, you can't go ahead and take the root and put it back in the ground. Ve'ein markivin, you can't graft the branch onto another tree. Erev shvius, pachas mishleishim yain lufnei Rosh Hashanah, less than 30 days before. Again, this is going to be 30 and 30. If you do plant it and you do have racha, putting the branch back in the ground, you do harkava, yakor, you have to uproot it because it's like you planted in the Shemitah year. Rabbi Yehuda says, kol harkava she'ena kaletes b'shleisha yamim, any graft that does not take root, in 3 days, and it doesn't take root in 3 days, shuv ena kaletes. So in other words, it's 3 and 30. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, this is the sheet that we need. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon together, similar to androgynous when they were together. Shtei Shabbos is 2 weeks. For Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabbi Ravuel, the Divrei Oim Shloishim, the one that says 30, Sarach Shloishim Shloishim. You need 30 and 30. Again, 30 is the cutoff point. The 30 days for Rosh Hashanah. So 30 days of grafting is 30 days before. Total 60 days. The Divrei Oim Shloisha, Sarach Shloishim Shloishim, 33 days. The Divrei Oim, according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Shtei Shabbos. You need a month and 2 weeks. So this is the place where Rav said the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon. So 2 places. Like our Mishnah that I'm enjoying, this is Vadei Zachar, and by the din of Harkava, that you'd have, in addition to the Hisaf of a month, if you can go ahead and do Harkava 2 weeks before the month begins, you would be able to do it. If not, you wouldn't be able to do it. Okay? Shmuel said this halacha by 2 dinim, by Kaishi and by Kiddush. Okay, Kaishi guys, outside, I have to give you a lot of information. That's totally a digression of a digression. Midoraisa, Hilchas Nida works the following ways. Not every re'iyah of dam is equal. Not every re'iyah dam of a woman is equal. There's a cycle, what's called 7-11. If 7 days a month a woman sees, she's a Nida. If she stops seeing at the end of the 7th day, she is what? She's Tahar. After the days of Nida, she begins an 11-day period. If she sees dam 1 day, she has to watch Keneged that 1 day. She sees a 2nd day, she has to watch 1 day Keneged those 2 days. She sees a 3rd day, she's a Zava Gedayla. She would then have to go ahead and wait 7 clean days, and on the 8th day bring a carbon. That's what's called Mechusa Kippurim. Okay, that is that 11-day period. However, that's only if the blood comes by itself in the 11-day period. If I can say the blood be toilet, that the blood came because of another cause, then we won't say she's a Zava. So for example, a woman's pregnant and she goes into labor and she's having labor pains. If I can ascertain that the blood during those 11-day periods is a result of the labor pains, then what? Then she would not be what? She would not be a Zav. She would not be a Zav. Good. So now, what's the Zman of being Tola, the pain, and saying that caused the blood in those 7 days? That's what we're discussing now. Kishui, that nan, it's a Mishnah in the 4th parak in Nida. Kama yehei kishueha. How many days do we say that bitoila, that the blood she sees in that 11-day period is a result of labor pains? 40 or 50 days before we can be toila. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, dayoy chadasha, the month. Rabbi Yosef Shimon Omer, ein kishu yosem mishtei shabbos, 2 weeks. Okay, so that's what we're saying. The halacha is like Rabbi Yosef Shimon, 2 weeks. What's the din of kiddush? Kiddush is the din of klei kerem. If you have some vegetables or something going in a kerem, and it comes in conjunction with a grapevine, and it grows 1/200th of its growth, it'll be asa as klei kerem, it'll be asa bahana. You have the crops. You take the grapevine and you put it on top of the grapes. You cover it up, and now it grows 200 of its growth. That you kiddush, meaning it'll be aser, have kedusha of klei kerem. You have to burn it, and you be chayiv to pay the person for the damage that you did. Chayiv b'achru yusa, you be chayiv. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, I remember Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon of the opinion, and this is what we have to know on the days. Ein adam oised davar she'eino shaloi. You can't asa something that's not yours. So if I would take a geffen and put it over your tefua, it would not asa, even if it goes 1/200 of its growth. So the halacha is like that. So just to digress for a second, apparently, what kind of pshat is it? Well, you can't ask it something that's not yours. Miman of shach. Klei HaKerem would seem to be a physical mitzias. In other words, if it grows 1/200 of its growth in conjunction with something, a vegetable or a crop, it's considered Klei HaKerem. So how could Rabbi Shimon say it's not? How could they say it's not? It says top Tosfos, guys. Top Tosfos. Ein adam oised davar she'ein shaloi. Vim toimar. Umashna min noisein nevela oichelev b'tavshel shel chaveira shenesa. In other words, you're telling me the following. I can't ask for something that's not mine. Let's say I would go over to your cholent pot, and you know what? I take a piece of nevela and throw it in the cholent pot. Are you going to tell me ein adam oised davar she'ein shaloi? Of course not. That you couldn't eat the cholent. So Tosfos is asking my kasha. If you go ahead and take the vine and put it on the tfu, on the crop, you're making Klei HaKerem. How could you go ahead and say, what's the difference between Klei HaKerem and a cholent pot? Listen to this. Klei HaKerem is something that's totally in your mind. The Omar Hachi, Kigoin, Mishtachvel lebehemes chaveroi. Let's say you'd say, I want to bow down and serve my friend's animal as an avodah zarah. Ein adam oised davar she'ein shaloi. I can't make that animal to an avodah zarah since it's tali b'machshava. Hu adin Klei HaKerem is tali b'machshava. The afilu asa b'maisa, it says, but even you do a mice in the animal, even if you shech the animal from avodah zarah, it won't be avodah zarah because it's tali in your machshava, in your thought. The issa kalayim nami tali b'machshava. The issa of kalayim is tali in your machshava. Kidaminu mesech the kalayim. Gabi aroyo yerek. Now you're doing your field. You see your yerek, and on top of your yerek is a geffen. And you say the following: Kishagia, when I reach there, el ketenu, I will go ahead and pick it. I'll pick the yerek, I'll pick the vegetable. Afilu hoisif masayim, even if it grows 200 of its growth with the grapevine, mutta. However, l'sha'achser, on my way back, el ketenu aser. So what do you see? The fact that it's tali b'machshava, something that's tali b'machshava, you can't aser. So we're getting a little caveat about Klei HaKerem, which would explain everything. It's not pshat that automatically becomes Klei HaKerem. Klei HaKerem is tali in my machshava. I see something growing and I'm working. I don't have to end my work and run over to stop it to become a Klei HaKerem. I could say when I get there, I'll take it away. As long as I say I don't want it to be, as long as I say I don't want it to be, it's not going to be Klei HaKerem. So who adin over here? A person can't go over to his friends and say, I want it to be Klei HaKerem, because it's not yours. The same way you can't ask an animal for avodah zarah. Who adin, you can't go ahead and ask your friend's tfuah, your grain, as a result of being putting the geffen over it. Very geschmacka yisoid in Klei HaKerem. You won't say it's just a physical mitzvah. It's like cholent in a nevela. It's totally what in your machshava. Good Tosfos to know. If you have your shas, make a little mark next to it. Iboilahu. Now, Rav said his din in two venues, right? He said his din by androgynous, and he said his din by what? By harkava. Shmuel said his din by nida and by Klei HaKerem. What does each one hold? The other one sheeted. Gemara now just goes ahead and you said the halacha is like this, the halacha is like this. What does each one hold in the other one? Iboilahu. By androgynous mali oma Shmuel. Tashma dama Shmuel l'Ravanan less l'braisa mekami masnisan. Said that Shmuel said to Ravanan, less lebraisa that said androgynous is a beri b'fnei atzma in place of a Mishnah where it said it's a zacha. In other words, Shmuel is in agreement with Rav. Shmuel is in agreement with Rav that an androgynous is a zacha. What about harkava, where Rav said what it was 2 weeks before? Amar Shmuel tashma damle Shmuel Ravanan tanam kimanda amar shloishu shloishim. I disagree. I hold like the Man Yoma that said it was 3 days, 33 days, not the month and not 2 weeks. Kaishi, what would Rav hold by the woman who is bleeding as a result of labor? Mali Yoma Rav, Teku, we don't know. Kiddush Mali Yoma Rav, regarding the halacha being like Rabbi Yosef Shimon that Ein Adam Oised Davar She'ein Shaloi by putting the Klei HaKerem on top of the other one. What would Rav hold? This was then in Shmuel. What would Rav hold? Rabbi Yosef Tashma Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav Ein halacha Rabbi Yosef. The halacha is not like Rabbi Yosef, but ein achinami. If a person would go ahead and put the klei hakerem on top, put the geffen on top, it would make a klei hakerem, and he'd be chayiv b'achrayas. It would be usher, and he'd be chayiv to pay. Amalei Abaya, my chos is the samchas aha. Why are you samich on the report of Rav Huna saying that Rav disagrees with Rav Yosi? I have another Manda Omar reporting the name of Rav. The Omar of Ada Omar Rav. So now we have a question. Rav Huna saying the name of Rav, or Rav Ada saying the name of Rav? Halacha Rav Yosi. So why are you samich on Rav Huna and saying that halacha is not like Rav Yosi vis-a-vis Klei HaKerem? Why don't you say the halacha is like Rav Ada in the name of Rav? That halacha is like Rav Yosi in the Klei HaKerem. So Amar B Rav Money, Amri. Bei Rav Money, who is the yeshiva of Rav? It's Rav Huna. It says, when it says the Gemara, the yeshiva of Rav, it's quoting Rav Huna. Rav Huna Amar ein halacha. In other words, it says the Bei Rav said the halacha was like what? The Gemara started over here saying Bei Rav, who's the halacha like? And who said, Amri Bei Rav Mishmei de Rav. Good? Take a look, guys. Look at Pegam Lam and Aleph. 10 lines down. Amri Bei Rav Mishmei de Rav Halach Reb Yosi be'Androginus Barakava. So who Amri Bei Rav, the yeshiva of Rav? Who's the yeshiva of Rav? Rav Ada or Rav Huna? It's Rav Huna is the yeshiva of Rav. Therefore, given I draw this to go ahead and choose what Rav Shita is, whether halacha is like Reb Yosi based upon Rav Ada, or the halacha is not like Reb Yosi by Kiddush, based upon what? The report of Rav Huna, we're going to believe Rav Huna because Rav Huna, in fact, is the Bei Rav, is the yeshiva of Rav. Okay, back by us. Okay. The last din in the Mishnah, okay, actually you should go back to Pei Aleph Amid Aleph. Turn back to Pei Aleph Amid Aleph, please. Rabbi Yehuda says, right before it says Gemara, 4 lines up. Rabbi Yehuda Omer tumtum shenikra. Again, a tumtum is covered up with a membrane. You rip the membrane away. The nimtza zach, and you find it's a male. Lo yachloitz mfnei shu k'sris. You chintu chalitza because it's sris chama and you can't have children. Rabbi Akiva said a sris chama, right, can't be do chalitza. Androgynous, noisei. An androgynous is a man who can marry a woman. Avalei nisei, but he can't marry a man. Good. Rabbi Lezer androgynous chayav skila kazacha. We had that yesterday. Okay, so now. This din of Rabbi Yehuda is assuming that the tumtum can't have children. Right? That's what he's saying. The reason why he can't have children because we'll treat the tumtum like a saris. A saris can't have children. So Fred the Gemara. Amravami, my overlay Rabbi Yehuda, the tumtum de Biri. What did Rabbi Yehuda say about the tumtum in the town of Biri? The Izvua Abe Kurse, they put him on the surgeon's chair, the Ikra, and they ripped away his membrane. The Oilet Sheva Bonim, and he had 7 children. And you say he's like a sris that can't have children. What's he going to say about this mitzias of this tumtum we had that was able to have children? Says Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Amalei Chazra al Banav Meinheim. Go check where the children came from. They can't be from him. In other words, these children he questioned their yichus. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer tumtum layachleitz. A tumtum. Now this is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. Guys, names are important. Rabbi Yehuda said he's a zachar, but he can't have children. And here, the son, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, is saying the following: Tumtim lo yachleitz, a tumtim can't do chalitza like his father. Shema yikrov v'nim sasaris chama. Fred the Gemara, all you're worried about is him being a sris chama, or to call the mikra zachahave. Every time you rip away the membrane, automatically you're going to say it's a male. You could take into opinion it might be a female. Says Mahachi Kamar, Shema yikrov v'nim sinekeva. First of all, you know why you can't do chalitza? Maybe you'll find it's in the keva. The im nimsa zachar shema yimsa saris chama. And even if he turns out to be a male, maybe a saris chama. So the question is, according to either one, Sai Rabbi Yehuda, Sai Rabbi Yehuda, the tumtum is not be able to perform chalitza. What's the halachic difference between the two? My binaya, what's the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and his father Rabbi Yehuda? Samarava. If the tumtum does chalitza, would it passel b'makam achim? In other words, would it passel b'makam achim if you have other brothers besides him, and he does chalitza would it stop the other brothers from being able to do chalitza? According to Rabbi Yehuda, that says he's a Sris, that Sris Vadai, then he won't passel the brothers, and they're able to do Yibum. According to Rabbi Yossi, his son, that says it's a suffix what he is, they would passel the brothers, because maybe he's not a Saris. And then it's good chalitza. So in other words, if he would go ahead, the Tumtum goes ahead, there's 3-4 brothers, let's say, there's 3 or 4 brothers. One brother dies, and now he falls for Yibum. The Saris goes ahead, the Tumtum jumps ahead, and he does a chalitza. Question: is that end it all for all the brothers or not? Does it end for all the brothers or not? Loi Rabbi Yehuda, that is a vadai zachar, and he vadai can't have children, and you said he can't do chalitza. The other brothers will be able to do Yibum. Loi Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, that's Shema, we don't know. Then they would have to give chalitza. They won't be able to do Yibum. That's one nafkamina. Another nafkamina is lachle shloi b'mokam, right? Let's say what? Let's say he's the only game in town. Let's say he's the only game in town. Like Rabbi Yehuda, she's free. You don't need anything. Like Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, it's a Shema, he would have to give chalitza. Amrav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, Amrav Abba, Achva. Okay, Pini, we're on Daf Pei Gimel Amid Beis. We're a little past the halfway point, and the last words are on the line of Amrav Yehuda Amarav. Amrav Yehuda Amarav. Androgynous chayav lebskila mishnei mekaymes. We had this yesterday, fellas. It's a little interesting topic. Again, androgynous has 2 simonim. If a male is with the androgynous, right, like the shita that holds it to zachar, like the shita that holds it to zachar, so you will be mechayiv mishkavei zachar. When? There's 2 possibilities. There was a znus in the nakfus, in the makom of the nekeva, or there was a znus in the zachrus, in the makom of the zachar, the backside. Okay? Question. Everyone would hold the backside. What about the front side as well? So we said yesterday. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, androgynous chayv la skila mishnei mekaymes. Either way, you be chayiv skila als mishkav zachar. Meisivei, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, androgynous. Now, Rav Yehuda Amar Rav is an Amayra. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, androgynous chayav la skila kibizachar. Medav mamurim bezachar shaloi. Not if he does in the nakfus and the nekeva part, only in the zachrus part. So who does Rav? Rav is disagreeing with the Tana. He can't disagree with the Tana. He says, who do Tana? Rav holds like the following Tana. The Tanya. Androgynous chayav leskila mishtei mekaymes. And androgynous we mechayiv skila in one of 2 places, right? Okay, in one of 2 places. We mechayiv one of 2 places. Now, what's the pasuk of Mishkav Zacha? What's the pasuk of Mishkav Zacha? It says, Ve'es Zacha lo'sishkav mishkevei isha to'evehi. Pashit, a Zachar, another male, lo'sishkav, you should not lie. Mishkevei isha, like you lie with a woman. To'evehi, it's an abomination. That's the literal translation. That's the literal translation. We're going to see how Chazal go ahead and work this. We're going to see how Chazal learn Pshat over here. So Rabbi Simoy says again, you will be chayev in either place. Why? My time with the Reb Simoy that you chayev in either place. Amarava Bar Hamduri, Amarava stop Bar Hamduri Asberli. Bar Hamduri, he explained it to me. It says Ve'ez Zocha le'sishkav mishkevei isha. Ezeu Zocha sheyesh ba shnei mishkavos. Habayom is androgynous. So a Zocha should not be with a person who is shayach mishkevei isha. Mishkevei isha means there's a lashon of Rabbim guy mishkevei. Who's the only being that it's possible 2 types of bias? It would be what? It would be an androgynous. So therefore, you're chayiv for both. You're chayiv for mishka. If he does it in the way with a woman, or he does it with the way of a man, you'll be chayiv. For Rabbanon, who say you're only chayiv for mishkavei for zachar, afagav the ispe shnei mishkavos, he dashes the following, says, as zachar ksiv. It says es zachar. So listen to what he learns, guys. The es zachar leisishkav, meaning the es zachar only if you have a bia of a zachar, a bia that of the makam the zakris. It's not speaking about the person. It's speaking about the makom of the avera. There's zachar leisishkav mishkavei isha. In the makom, right, of the zachar, in the makom of the zachar, shalei kedarka, do not go ahead and do mishkavei isha. So it's going on what? On the not the person, it's going on the place. So the only place you be chayev for mishkav zachar would be zachar. Even by an androgynous, the only place you chayev is zachar. Fred the Gemara Kasha. Now this is a tremendous chiddush, guys. According to this, how do you know a zachar with a regular zachar? How would you know? If you're using the as zachar to not mean a male, but to mean the place on a male, how do you know a regular male with another male? Says Gemara. If that's the case, the Rabbanon, zachar greda min Allahu, zachar greda, how do you know? Since you're using the word zachar not to mean a person, but to be a locale, a place, says the Gemara, take the word isha and put it says v'es zachar. The extra vav will tell me the person as well. That v'es zachar, the person as well, the makom zachar. B'isha shalei kedarka min Allahu. So how do you know if you're using it for zachar? How do you know by oinshin, if you're ma'anis a woman shalei kedarka, or you with an erva shalei kedarka, how do you know you be chayiv? Not ma'anis, but by a royos. So it's more miv isha for the extra vav of isha. So we have machlokes by an androgynous, whether you dafka b'makom zachrus or afilu makom nekeva. Amrav Shizbi, Amrav Kista, loy lecholam Amrav Eliezer androgynous zachem al Yehu. This halacha that Rabbi Eliezer said that an androgynous is what is always a male is not. It's not across the board. Okay, a little background for the next piece of Gemara. We know that in the Beis Hamikdash you could bring not only could you bring animals, you could bring birds. You can bring an oilas oif as a neder and a dava, and you can bring a chatas oif if you're very poor, and usually accompanying the chatas oif would be an oilas oif. Uniquely about the oilas oif and the chatas oif, there was no shchita, as opposed to normally you would shecht in the front of the neck, cutting the kan of a veshet. What was done was called malika. The kohen would take his right finger, he would hold the bird in one hand, he would take his right thumb, and with his thumb, with his nail, would cut through the skin on the back of the neck, going ahead and rendering the animal in the veil of a treifa for all intents and purposes, and it wasn't a shechita. Anytime you don't have a shechita, it's called nevela. So this nevela in the Beis Hamikdash is muta. A very fascinating din. Now, regarding that, there's no, even though by animals we say there's a difference between male and females. So, for example, a oila has to be a male, an asham has to be a male, a chatas by and large has to be a female, a shlam can be both. By birds, there's no difference. By birds, there's no tamas v'zachras by birds. Okay, there's just a bird. So it doesn't make a difference. With that in mind, let's begin. What's the shaila? Where do we see Rebbe Eliezer's din and androgynous that it's not across the board that it's a male? I'll show you by kachim that if an animal behemoth is an androgynous, you can't bring it as a carbon. That's going to, guys, see here? If the animal is an androgynous, we won't view it as a male and you'll be able to bring it as a carbon. We'll view it as puzzle, says the Gemara. The Tana Rabbanan. How do you see that? Shem ata oimekain b'magdashim yagdish. Because if you're going to say it's a male, by kachim regarding the halachas kabbanis yagdish, it should be a good carbon. When we know like kiddush, how do you know it's not a good carbon? The Tana Rabbanan. Hanirva, an animal that had an act of znus done to it. V'ham muktza, an animal that was set aside for avodah zara. V'hanevad, or an animal that was served avodah zara. V'esnan, an animal that was the salary of a zayna. Umechir, an animal that was switched for a dog. V'tumtum, an animal that was a tumtum. V'androgynous, an animal was an androgynous. Now all this, I just said the word animal, all this is speaking about birds. All this is speaking about birds. Now, as opposed to the veil of an animal which is touched, is asa b'mago b'masa by carrying and touching, a kosher bird, once it becomes an nevela, is only metama when it's in your throat. If you touched it outside, it would not be metama, only when it's in your throat. How do you know that all of these, that the metama begodim beisabliya, tumtum v'androgynous ein metamim begodim beisabliya. Tumtum v'androgynous would not be metamim begodim beisabliya. Why? Because according to Rabbi Eliezer, tumtum v'androgynous would in fact be a kosher carbon, guys. It wouldn't be nevela. It wouldn't be nevela, therefore it would be kosher. How do you know it's a kosher carbon? Because Rabbi Eliezer oimer kol makom shnema zachon nekeva. Any place the Torah is makman having a zachon nekeva, atamoitza tumtum v'androgynous b'vinehem. then you can exclude an androgynous. So beautiful limud, guys. Watch. We're inferring the din of animal from birds. Again, we're up to the bottom of Pei Gimel Amid Beis. Pei Gimel Amid Beis. We're concluding something. We're going to be on the last line. So we're just concluding the last statement over here. Rabbi Eliezer said that an androgynous is a zachar, and therefore he could feed his wife truma. And in addition, le'inyan mishkav zachar, the homosexuality, an act done to him would be chayiv. Only, however, if it's done in the place where shalei kedarka. That was the Rabbi Eliezer. The Gemara is making a statement now. That statement is not in every single halacha, but we view him as what? As a male. There are times we won't view him as a male. When is that? Le'inyan a carbon. If you have an androgynous behema, it would not be acceptable as a carbon. If you have an androgynous behema, it would not be accepted as a carbon. Where do you know that from? Because an androgynous of a bird is accepted as a carbon. And why is an androgynous of a bird accepted as a carbon? Because by birds, there's no chilik between male and female. It doesn't make a difference. Since there's no difference, the androgynous is accepted. Conversely, by animals, where we do make a distinction between male and female, some yes, some not, then androgynous would be a problem. That's the raya that he holds that it's not a male across the board. Omer of Nachma Yitzchak Afananami Tanina, the same din. Rebbe Eliezer Omer Amid Aleph Pedal Amid Aleph Afananami Tanina. Rebbe Eliezer Omer HaKalayim V'Treifa V'Yotzedayim Kalayim. Kalayim is a geep, guys. Let's say a goat and a sheep is a geep. A goat and a sheep. Treifa, an animal has one of internal wound, 18 internal wounds in an organ or external. V'Yotzedayim, or an animal that's a C-section. Tumtum V'Androgynous like Kedaishin. They cannot be kodesh through a tamura, v'loy makdishin, in order they can make a tamura. Like kedoshin b'tamura, v'loy makdishin b'iset tamura. Like kedoshin, they can't go ahead and become kodesh, nor can they go ahead and make kodesh. So the Gemara in Tamura asked, how then if they can't come, if they can't, how can they? If they didn't come kodesh, how can they make something kodesh? So it could be that what you kodesh them before, they became a tray for, or so on and so forth. Shmamina. If you're with an androgynous, Tanya Rabbi Kishlachlu ben Shemua, when they went to learn Torah and Eitzel Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua, Chibru like Talmidik, Tanagoyim shel Beis Bukya, the Talmidim, they attacked me like the roosters of the house of Bukya. They were really very fierce chickens, roosters. They didn't let me learn. Androgynous chayav leskila kazacha, and androgynous you chayav skila kazacha. Hajlach oral. Very packed parak with a lot of yisaidus, the parak oral. Okay, I'm gonna ask everyone to check back in. I have to cancel this right now.